Most people think that inflation it's just an increase in price. That's a big mistake. And for those who make that mistake, it can end up costing them a lot of money. Inflation is actually a symptom of a very serious condition that is going on in the economy. In this video, we're going to be discussing the three reasons why inflation matters for mothers, and it's not because of the price increase. Hi, my name is Sylvie. I'm a mother and an educator, and I help mothers make fulfilling money decision in any economy. So in this video, we're going to be discuss first what inflation is. Then I'm going to share with you three reasons why it should matter to every single mother, no matter how much money you're making. And then I will offer a few recommendations of what we can do based on my experience dealing with inflation back in my country in the Congo in the 90s. My goal is to help you, mother, just like me, understand enough of the basic to make better money decision in this environment that we are living in. Just a quick disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just a financial educator who share my knowledge and my experience with money from living in three different continents and also from having lived under hyperinflation in the Congo. Let's go. So number one, we're going to start with the definition. Then we're going to get into the reason why it matters. So what is inflation? I looked up in my Webster 1966 dictionary, and inflation is defined as an increase in volume of money and credit relative to the goods and services that result in a substantial and continuous price increase. So inflation is not the price increase, but inflation results in a price increase. And it also is not a little insignificant price increase of pennies, right? It has to be substantial. Last, it has to be continuous. Okay, it cannot just be a jump in the price because some economic circumstances. It has to be a substantial increase that is continuous. So I have a few questions. Who can increase the volume of money and credit? Right? I think if we can answer that question, it will give us some insight as to maybe who's causing the inflation. I came from the Congo. Back then, it used to be called Zaire. And so we had a president who was also a dictator. And we also had the privilege of printing our own money. We did not rely on the franc CFA like Cameroon or Ivory Coast. So we had our own institution that was managing the monetary policy and printing money. And because of the mismanagement that was going on in the country, our president was basically printing money, and we reached some level of inflation that are unbelievable. Like we literally got to the 24,000% of inflation. It was ridiculous. It was painful. But people had to find a way to live through that. People had to find a way to manage. And my mother, being a widow, I was her right arm, and we together were working and figuring out a way to survive in that environment. So that's what we had in the Congo. So here in the United States, who has the authority to print money? I shouldn't say print money, but I should say who has the authority to increase the volume of money and credit? Well, it's the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has received that power from the United States government. So the Federal Reserve is the one who increased the volume of money and credit. What does that tell us, mothers, right? As the manager of our family budget, as the one preparing for the kids' college or retirement, we know that these people are smart, they're educated, right? They're qualified, they know what they're doing. They consciously make the decisions to increase the volume of money and credit. So what does that tell us? That tells us that we have to take full responsibility for our finances. We are on our own, right? No one but us can look out for our own financial well-being. It's not our employer, it's not the government. We need to actively, I would say offensively, take better control of all aspects of our finances. That's the first thing we have to realize. This is not something that is just happening randomly that nobody has control of. This is something that is designed by the policy that are implemented by the Federal Reserve, and they know what they're doing. The other question that I think it's important to answer is, when did inflation start in the United States economy? Right? Was it in the 2000s? Was it in the 90s, in the 80s? That would be interesting to find out. When did it start? Well, Inflation as an economic concept has existed throughout the United States history, but persistent measuring inflation became a standard feature. They call it a standard feature of the economy in the 20th century. And look at the next statement, particularly after the Federal Reserve was established in 1913 and the US moved out of the gold standard in 1971. Wow, wow. Inflation has always been there. Always. It was there before I was born, before my mother was born, even before my grandmother was born. So, what does that tell us? It will probably be here after I'm gone, right? It's here to stay. A few years ago, we were told that it was transitory. There was absolutely nothing transitory about inflation. It had already been there since 1913. We have to be clear on that. Inflation is here to stay. And for me as a mother, what does that say? Right? I'm just thinking out loud, right? What does that mean for the way I spend my money for my family? What does that mean for the way I do my budget? Do I actually take into consideration the fact that prices might, could, will continue to increase? What does that mean for my income? What does that mean for the college saving for the children, for my retirement saving? I have to think differently. The last question that we have to answer is what does inflation do to the dollar? To the dollar. What does it do to the money? Basically, it means that you will have to spend more to get the same stuff. That's one thing. Another thing that it can mean is that you will have to spend the same amount of money, but you will get something of a lower quality. And what is usually happening is that both of those two things are happening at the same time. You have to spend more money and you're getting something of a lower quality than you used to get. That's the tragedy of what's happening with inflation. So, what can you do about that? What can you and I do about that? We have to shift our mindset. We have to go from a saving mindset to a value storing mindset. In Zaire, that's what people did, right? They did that all the time, and it didn't matter whether they had money or not. Instead of saving the currency, the Zaire, nobody did that, of course. People saved, for example, food for weeks, for months. It got to the point where in the Congo, every household had what we call a magasin, right? It's basically a storage room, right? We had storage room. It was like a standard feature because you don't just have a pantry. You buy and you store in bulk. Why? Because the prices are increasing at a rate that is unbelievable. It's just not possible to keep up with that rate. So for us here in the 21st century in the United States, what can we do? Hmm. Why not make a portion of what we save instead of saving in money, like we are told to do? We have that advice of have 3 to 6 months of worth of expenses in your saving account. Why not take a portion of that and save it by buying food and you save the food? So instead of saving 3 to 6 months worth of expenses with the grocery budget in that saving, take that grocery budget and save as much as you can of the grocery. Save as much as you can of the paper towel, of the toilet paper, of the soap, of the toothpaste. That will be a way to kind of edge as much as possible for that inflation that is, as we know, persistent. So let's recap. We now know what inflation is. And it's absolutely not an increase in price. It's an increase in the volume of money and credit. Price increase is just a consequence. Okay. We know that we don't control it. We don't create it. Not our employer. It's not the big corporation. We know who controls it, right? It's the Federal Reserve. And those who enable it, which means the government who gave that power to the Federal Reserve. We also know that it started about 100 years ago. Inflation has been going on for a very long time and it will probably be around for another very long time. So we know also that money loses value. And no, regarde le gâteau, hein? I'm baking a cake and the alarm just went off. So we also know that just as the money lose value, people in a country with persistent inflation had to shift their mindset from money saving to value saving. We have to do the same thing. And we can actually start today by buying in bulk of food and other necessities. In conclusion, for us mother, we did not sign up to become economists on top of being the chauffeur, the cook, the doctor, the home manager, the psychologist. I understand that, but we have no choice. We have absolutely no choice. If we want to provide, to nurture, and to care for our family, we need to make money decisions that are very different than what we've been taught to do in the past. So, thank you for listening to my video. Tell me in the comment what you will do for you and your family today, knowing what you know about inflation.